will be a Hello, Alwin. Thank you so much for offering this incredible opportunity for our Wayne State University students. My name is Sharon Thomas, and I represent public relations within Club Med Virtual. I'll be leading today's session, reading any comments posted in the chat, and facilitating the conversation as we go along. Before we start, I want to remind everyone to maintain proper etiquette and please keep themselves on mute unless Alwin specifies otherwise. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we'll address them as we proceed throughout the session. A Google survey will be administered for Wayne State University students at the very end of the session. They verify your attendance and will close 30 minutes after the session terminates. Please stay on the call for at least 5 minutes after the session is over to ensure that the survey is working for you. The session will also be posted on YouTube in case you are unable to attend or want to revisit certain topics that Alwin will discuss today. But you cannot receive attendance hours if you're not present in this call and complete the survey. Okay, Alwin, you can begin your presentation if you want. Oh, Alwin, I think you're muted. 1 second.
Yep. All right. I think I'm good now. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, and we can hear you now.
Cool. All right. And can you see my screen, I hope?
We can see your screen.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, you guys, my name is Alwin, as Sharon was saying. I am a 4th year medical student at Central Michigan University. I'm hoping to be graduating this May, so that's really exciting. I am applying for physical medicine and rehabilitation residency this year, and hopefully be matching in March. So I know that typically for these sessions, you will go through a case and, talk about some questions and answers, but I felt like just for, what this session may be, I think it would be beneficial for everyone's time if I just kind of went through what my journey was through pre-med and then my journey through medical school so far, and then answer any questions that you guys may have. So so without any further ado, let me just get through this and I will let you guys know and answer any questions that you guys may have. Let's see, does this work? All right. So my name, so like I said, I'm Alwin. I'm from Livonia, Michigan. I went to school at class of 2013. I played varsity soccer there and was all state for soccer at Catholic Central. I went to Michigan State University for undergrad, where I got my undergraduate degree in neuroscience, graduated in 2017, and now I'm at medical school at Central Michigan and applying for PMR. Basically, what I'm going to be doing through this session is going through just kind of like pictures. I'm more of a visual person. I like to talk, and just explain things as I go. So I'll just be going through some pictures of, my journey through pre-med and then medical school and go from there. So if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or at the end of the session, there should be some time left over. So my journey, I started undergrad at Michigan State in 2017. This is actually the first picture that I have from undergrad, right here on the left. I hope you guys can see my mouse. So I had an idea that I wanted to go into medicine prior to undergrad. Thankfully, my older brother is someone who had just started medical school when I was just starting undergrad, and he has kind of been my mentor for me growing up. And so I kind of had a mentor, but I didn't know exactly what being a pre-med student would be and what medical school would be like for me. I think everybody's journey is going to be different. So it was nice to have a mentor to kind of tell me and give me some ideas of what to do in undergrad, but ultimately this was still my own journey and my own path. The things that I really focused on, that I really enjoyed, and that I wanted to pursue in my future career was, service. I really enjoyed volunteer work. And that's something that I really focused on in undergrad. Right off the bat, I tried to join organizations that were really focused on, doing volunteer work and community service activities. These are just some pictures here that I had done with different organizations through the MSU's Honors College, through the Indian Student Organization. There's different organizations that I had joined that, we're offering volunteer opportunities, because that's something that I really wanted to do. Another thing that I really liked and that I really highlighted in undergrad was doing this bus tour. Here in the corner, you can see this is actually, move that out of the way. So you can see this is a bus tour that I did in my first year of undergrad, where basically it was a service trip where we would start in East Lansing and we would take this bus down for 7 days through spring break and stop at 5 different cities along the East Coast and ended up in Atlanta. And each city that we stopped at, we did a volunteer activity in that area. So it was really cool because not only was I get to meet a whole different diversity of people from MSU, but also get to work in these different cities, gain a ton of volunteer experiences and hours for my future med school applications, and also get to see a bunch of different cities during spring break. So it was a cool thing that I got to do in undergrad. One other thing that I really highlighted in undergrad was being a part of an a cappella team. I'm very passionate about music and singing. I have done that my entire life, piano and singing. Being able to explore that even more in undergrad was really cool through the a cappella team Spartan Sir. So I was a part of that for all 4 years. And it was cool because I got to continue my passion for music and singing. And also that opened up the opportunity to be able to participate in different service activities through Spartan Sir. So these other 2 pictures here are when we had performed at the annual event, St. Jude's Research Hospital event. And that was really cool because I got to also be a part of the St. Jude's fundraising activities that they were doing, while also getting to sing and perform with my group. So that was another thing I got to add to my resume as a pre-med student, along with being on Spartan Sir. Research, I know, is a big topic of conversation for pre-med students. And luckily, I was able to get some experience with research. And I'll talk about that later, when thinking about medical school applications. But research, I don't necessarily think is the most important thing, but like I said, I'll talk about that. I'm digressing right now. What I did was I was a part of the professorial assistantship program at Michigan State, which was through the Honors College. I was paired up with a nursing faculty, part of the nursing school, who actually allowed me to join on with some of her research projects. And I got to present those at a couple of the conferences at Michigan State and then around the mid-Michigan area. And that was really good because it kind of introduced me to the idea of research and how that can advance the medical field and things that I would be able to talk about later on in my medical school applications and interviews as well. And then this over here on the right side was something that I actually got to do at Wayne State. So after, I believe it was my second year of undergrad, I had applied to the summer undergraduate research program at Wayne State University through their School of Medicine. And I was paired up with one of the faculty at the molecular medicine and genetics lab. And it was really cool because it was a 12-week experience that I got to, do research in a laboratory setting. We were looking at different CDKs and cyclins and how it affected oogenesis in Drosophila. And it was cool because I got to, again, read a lot of, it helped me learn how to, read through this and read and comprehend through this really difficult information, learn some cool lab skills. I got to do some microdissection. I got to, really inspect some of these Drosophila under the microscope, do different staining techniques. And then I also got to present that in the future, at the end of the 12 weeks at a mini conference that they had for the rest of the students there, and also for some of the other faculty who were at the Wayne State School of Medicine. So that's kind of like what my research was. I only had these kind of 2 or 3 experiences of research in undergrad, and a lot of my other experiences for my medical or pre-med for my medical school application were very volunteer and work heavy. Speaking of work, I got involved with something called Osteochance at Michigan State through their College of Osteopathic Medicine. And that was cool because that was something that I got to continue for all 4 years of undergrad at Michigan State. This was something that so what Osteochance is it's a a summer program for high school students who are interested in professional, either a health professions like, dental, nursing, medical. And it was just kind of helping these students navigate, what going to college would be like, and then also pursuing higher education after that. So I really enjoyed being a part of Osteochance because, first of all, it gave me the opportunity to start mentoring to younger students, these high school juniors and seniors, helping inspire them to, first of all, pursue college. For some of them, that may not have been what they had wanted to do. And then also to inspire them to, be interested in a field of, a health professional field. And it was cool because, this program allowed these students to get, lectures from different doctors, get to do suturing clinics and casting clinics, and, learn, different networking skills. And as a tutor counselor that I got to also, participate in these activities too. I got to, talk to these doctors. I got to network with the medical students who were there at the time at MSU's College of Osteopathic Medicine, and kind of get to see what their day-to-day life was like as medical students. And that helped inspire me and really solidify medicine as the choice for me. And being able to do that for all 4 years of undergrad also was something that I know medical schools really appreciated, because it showed that I was committed to something for a long period of time. And it was a work experience, so it was nice to get paid. Speaking of getting paid, one thing that I had learned about when applying for residencies this year is, if you have a passion that you really enjoy and it is kind of moved away from just being a hobby and it's kind of turned into, paid experiences, you can count that as a work experience. And that's something that I really got to start developing in undergrad. I have my passion for music and singing, and, these 3 pictures here are, paid experiences that I got to have. This one is from my worship team at church, and that's something that I love to do. It's not a paid experience at all, but it's something that I love to do because, I love being able to participate in the worship team in my church. But being able to play at weddings. This is a tailgate that I performed at for the College of Business at Michigan State. And this is me singing a national anthem at a marathon that was in East Lansing. And so taking, these passions that you may have, whatever it may be, if you can start to maybe develop that as, a work experience or something, a little bit more than just a hobby, that's something that's really cool to be able to talk about in medical school applications to interviews, and something that I talk about in almost every single one of my residency interviews so far. So that's something to keep in mind when you're going through your pre-med journey, and then starting to do your applications for medical school. So the next big thing that I wanted to talk about was my experience with the MCAT. I know the MCAT is this big daunting thing that everybody is kind of nervous about and is really, really preparing for in under. I have a lot of AP credits done in high school that transferred over to Michigan State, and I was able to have a little bit of time before my junior year of college to start dedicating towards the MCAT. I took the Princeton Review MCAT course. By no means do I know if one course is better than another, or I'm not getting sponsored by any of these courses, but I took the Princeton Review course, and that's what I personally would recommend because that's what I know. I like that because I didn't know where to start in terms of studying for the MCAT, and taking the course was good because it helped me give me a place to start. I was able to take the skills that I learned through the course and start making my own study plan. I know for some people doing the course is, they would do it like pretty intensively for the 2 or 3 months. I don't remember exactly, but the 2 or 3 months right before their exam, and, take it right then after the course. But I took it the summer before my junior year. And then my junior year, I was able to take a lighter course load because of my credits. And then I took my first MCAT in the winter period of my junior year, the winter break period. And I say I took my first one because I wasn't satisfied with the first score that I got. And that's one thing that I do want to, reiterate to, pre-med students that it may seem really daunting is if you're not satisfied with the scores you have, don't be afraid to take that exam one more time. I know it becomes a little difficult, taking it more than a couple of times and having all the scores being sent to all your medical schools. And, people may see that as a red flag. But if you're not satisfied with the score and you don't think that you'll be competitive and you're really, determined on applying this cycle, don't be afraid to take the exam one more time. I took it one more time. I still ended up in medical school. And I saw a significant increase from that first exam that I took and taking it again. Going back, one thing that I wish I had done more was the practice. The MCAT is an exam that I personally felt was, it's not necessarily so much of like, making sure all your physics equations and making sure all of orgo and all of bio. I think for me, the difficult part was the test taking. This was around the time that the new MCAT had started, the 2015 MCAT, and taking a standardized exam at that level was pretty daunting for me. So if I were to go back, the biggest advice I would give is to practice. Take as many practice exams as you can. Get into the mindset of taking these standardized exams and, trying to get rid of as many extraneous factors as possible. If you know that you need to take a break after a section or two sections, practice that. Practice taking that break. Practice taking, whatever lunch it is, so you don't have to go rush to the bathroom at one point, or make sure you have the drinks that you need, or the coffee, 5-hour energy, whatever you need. Make sure you have all those factors taken care of, so that way you're able to really practice however many sections you can go through and really practice that. And then getting to medical school interviews. I had all my volunteer experiences that I had talked about. I had the work experiences with Osteochance, with some of the music stuff that I'd done. I'd worked also at a doctor's office my senior year of college, and that was a good thing, or a good experience as an MA. And I had my research as well. But the personal statement is something that I also wanted to say is very, very important, because every person's personal statement is going to be different. But the gist of it is going to be, I want to help people. I've wanted to be a doctor since a young age, all these, cliche answers. But if you can find what is most important to you in terms of why you wanted to be in medicine, what was that one moment that you found? I know for me, I talked about one of the volunteer experiences that I had in the ER when I was in undergrad, and helping out with that experience. Find whatever it is that was for you. It doesn't have to be from being at the age of 4 years old, I've always wanted to be a doctor, or it was in high school or it was in college. It doesn't matter. If you can find what that one experience was for you that was really beneficial and really solidified that you want to be a doctor, write about that. And also the same thing for letters of recommendation. When you need those, it's good to be able to have a doctor or somebody that really knows your academic side. But if you have someone who has known you for a long time and can really talk about who you are as a person and what you bring to the table as a future doctor, don't be afraid to have them write you a letter of recommendation. One thing that I found really beneficial was my piano teacher. I had a piano teacher for 14 years, I believe. And she actually wrote one of my letters of recommendation for college and for medical school. And, she's somebody that saw me, in so many different opportunities, or so many different stages of my life, that, she really knew who I was. And then one thing that's, really important is knowing your application. Whatever you put on your application is fair game to be talked about in an interview, whether that be the MMI format, multiple mini interviews, or a one-on-one interview. I know in one of my earlier medical school interviews, I had on my application that I was part of a chess club in high school. And someone asked me like, "Oh, what's your favorite opening move in chess?" And I was like, I have no idea. I didn't know that there was different types of opening moves. So I had added that as kind of just like a buff, something to buff up my application. But, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of just part of a chess club just for fun. So, make sure you know what your application is. Make sure you can talk about everything that's on your application for your medical school interviews, and also for residency interviews when you get to that point. And one other thing is, don't be afraid to reach out to admissions offices. If you're getting to a point where you're not getting so many interviews, it's okay to reach out to admissions offices and say, hey, I'm really interested in your medical school for this reason and this reason. Be specific about it. And maybe that'll open doors. I know a few friends who have reached out to admissions offices in a professional manner. You don't want to be bombarding them with so many emails and calls and, hey, where's my interview? Here's, what's the status of my application? But, in a professional manner, once or twice, reaching out to admissions office is not a bad idea. So, next stage of my life, I was able to get into medical school at Central Michigan University. Just some pictures from my white coat. And what was really interesting was that I, was excited, but also nervous because, I had talked to people and everyone says it's really, really demanding. But the things that I didn't know about were how demanding it was. And that's something that I definitely want to share with you all today is medical school is very demanding. There's a lot of things that you have to put on hold. There's a lot of, your friendships, your families, certain activities, you finish undergrad, you have a lot of friends, and some of them may not be pursuing graduate school, and they may start working, and they may have plans on getting fancy cars and houses, and getting engaged and married, and it's difficult when you kind of put those things on hold as a medical student, because you're really focusing on this next stage of your life, whereas other people have already started that next stage. So that's something that I definitely didn't know as strongly. People had talked about it, but I didn't really quite understand what that meant moving forward. And, these things kind of became my best friends. And, when you get to medical school, you'll learn about all the different study tools. You do not need to worry about this right now, but, this is just me reiterating, I had to sacrifice a lot of things that I really, really wanted to do. I'd miss weddings, I'd miss birthday parties, I'd miss, doing all these great things with, some of my friends from college, but you're really, really focusing on the next stage of life. And that's something that you really want to remember, especially when you're talking at medical school interviews, is you understand that it's going to be a big sacrifice. And you understand that, it's going to be difficult, but you are willing to put in the work, and you're willing to make those sacrifices for the next stage of your life to become a doctor. I did a little bit of research in medical school, not very much. Med school, I wasn't too focused on research, but this is a poster presentation that I did with some peers at CMU. But I was really focusing on making sure that I was doing well in school, and then also learning as much as I could. And then I also went to do more volunteer activities, which I really enjoyed. I'll go back to the other page, but this is some different activities I was doing. This was a Camp Med, again, for high school students who are interested in medical school at CMU. I helped out with some Big Brothers Big Sisters events in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And this was also when I was helping out with the Special Olympics. And that's actually how I got interested in PM&R. And I'll get to that. But this is going back to saying, even though you're making a lot of sacrifices in medical school, you can still have a lot of fun. You can still do some cool things. I was able to, continue soccer with intramural level. And we actually won quite a few intramural leagues at soccer. We played basketball with some of my students. Weren't as good as we were in soccer, but that was still fun. And this is my PBL group, problem-based learning group that, we dressed up for Halloween, and it was fun. So what I'm saying is, although there are sacrifices, you can still have a lot of fun in medical school, and you can still do fun things. After having participated in Special Olympics, I actually grew in my interest for working with patients with disabilities. Special Olympics is for athletes who have physical and mental disabilities, and being able to provide them an increased quality of life by helping them participate in Special Olympics was part of the reason that I was really excited to find out about the field of physical medicine and rehabilitation. And that Special Olympics volunteer experience was actually something that I talked about in my personal statement for residencies. So what is PM&R? PM&R is, this is from the AAPM&R, the American Association of PM&R. It's a medical specialty that aims to enhance and restore functionability and quality of life to those with physical impairments or disabilities, and MSK. And that's really cool, because to me, those organ systems make the most sense. A PM&R physician is known as a physiatrist. It's not a psychiatrist. It's not a physical therapist. It's a physiatrist. And its goals of PM&R are to maximize patients' independence in their activities of daily living and their quality of life. So the types of patients that you see in PM&R are patients who have spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, post-stroke. Neurology will see patients who have stroke, or neurosurgery may see patients from initial spinal cord injury. But then after that is how do you guide them through the next stages of their life, increasing their independence and their functionality. That's what PM&R comes in, and you're doing the medical management. You work with other therapists. You work with PT and OT and speech therapy to help advance these patients in their independent goals and their quality of life. You can do a bunch of procedures, things like ultrasound guided injections, EMG, which is electromyography. You can do injections with regenerative medicine, which is like platelet-rich plasma, different stem cell injections, or even things like Botox injections for migraines, for hyperhidrosis, which is excess sweating, and even some cosmetics too. I pursued my interest for PM&R by, first of all, shadowing some doctors around CMU. I was lucky enough to be able to do a virtual rotation through this doctor right here in Chicago, who was really wanted to give back to students and give them an opportunity to get this PM&R experience, even though COVID was going on. I should have prefaced with that. COVID really affected my opportunities to be able to do away rotations at different places to learn more about PM&R. And this doctor actually gave us an opportunity to do a virtual PM&R rotation, which was difficult, but he really made it work. He gave us the opportunity to round with him at the hospitals, see patients virtually in the clinic, and then also participate in different lecture series. Right here, Shirley Ryan Ability Lab is an opportunity I had to rotate at Northwestern for a PM&R rotation. And that was really cool because it was right before my applications for residency. And I got to really learn PM&R at the highest level. Northwestern is one of the top rehab facilities for the field of PM&R. And I got to be able to have that experience there in Chicago. And that was a really great experience. I learned so much about PM&R, and that got me really excited just for residencies. And yeah, the virtual setup is very interesting this year. This is actually my virtual setup right here that I have for interviews, and probably what you're seeing me doing right now. So that's kind of what's been going on this year. It's unfortunate I'm not able to travel for interviews, but saving a lot of money in terms of travel. So that's nice. So the main takeaways that I want to give for this presentation is be passionate about medicine. Make sure that you're going in it for the right reasons. You understand that there are some sacrifices that are going to be made, but that you have done your volunteer experiences. You've done the shadowing that you need to do, and you have some work experience with some doctors or some research. These things may not all be. You don't need to have a million hours in all of those things, but be passionate about what you're doing. If you really are passionate about volunteering in a certain field or a certain area, do that and talk about that. That's a longitudinal experience, and med schools like to see that. One thing that I think would be really important right now as undergraduate students is take time to learn good study habits. A lot of the information you may learn in your science classes right now, you're probably not going to learn or remember in medical school, or you'll have to relearn it again. But now would be a good time to start learning good study habits and really take the time to figure out what works for you. If you're a visual learner, focus on that. If you are an audio learner, try and figure out the best ways that works for you. Make time for your passions. Like I was saying, I really enjoy music, singing, and playing soccer, and being physically fit. So like those things are important for me, and I will make time to do that throughout my day in undergrad and in medical school. And only do things that you're interested in. If you're not interested in doing research, you don't have to do it. It's not, don't just say you can check off a box, because, med schools and residencies, they'll be able to see through that. If you're not truly interested in what you're doing and you can't really talk about it that much, then, what's the point? So only do things that you really are interested in, and then be ready to work hard, but have fun. And, that's that I would say. Even in medical school, most recently, a group of friends and I, we went up north to Pictured Rocks and we did some hiking. And, we went to Pistons games and Top Golf and things like that. It's a difficult, demanding life in medical school, but you will have time to have fun and make time for that. So I think that's really important. This is all the contact info that I have. I'm not exactly sure how much time I've taken up for the rest of you all, but if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute and ask a question yourself, go ahead. I'm an open book. I will answer anything, so feel free.
Do you have any advice for students who may have low stats right now and feel discouraged to continue pursuing a career in the medical field?
So one thing that I didn't do, actually, that I think is not actually the worst. It is actually I would highly recommend is if you don't feel as if you're a competitive applicant for this cycle, it is perfectly fine to take a gap year. That actually is something, looking back, that I wish I had done, because I think it would have given me more time as an individual to, first of all, grow and mature and really know that, medical school is what I want to do. It would give me some time to gain some work experience, hopefully in a medical field, but also, feel just more ready for medical school. Sometimes I had felt like as if there was, I just finished undergrad and then I was just starting medical school. So it was a lot going back and forth, or, going back to back. So I really, I think I would have benefited from taking a gap year, and that's totally fine. I'm pretty sure the average age of the incoming medical student is 25, and that's perfectly fine to go from undergrad, take a couple of years off, and jump into medical school after that when you feel more competitive.
We have some questions in chat. So one of them is, how many schools did you apply to for graduate school? And then did you want to stay in state, or were you looking at out-of-state options as well?
Yeah, so I quite honestly don't remember how many schools I applied to for medical school. I will say that I only had 3 medical school interviews. I had one at MSU Com, I had one at Central Michigan, and I had one at Rosalind Franklin in Chicago. I'm not exactly sure, what the statistics are for how many interviews you should have to make sure that you get in, but I felt that getting into Central Michigan was, first of all, good because it was good to stay in state just tuition wise. Tuition at Rosalind was really expensive, and being in state, I was kind of thinking long term, I'll be in a lot of debt, but a little bit less debt would have been nicer. So I did want to stay in state in that regard.
Another question is, when you took the MCAT the second time and then you saw the big jump in your score, what do you believe is the main change that you made in order to see that jump?
Yeah, so for me, I felt as if that practice aspect was a thing that I hadn't really, taken as seriously as I should have the first time around. I had taken that MCAT, Princeton Review MCAT course initially, and coming back with that first score that I had, I was a little disappointed because I didn't take as much practice as I should have. I think I started to focus a little bit more on taking more and more practice exams, and that's why I got to see more of a jump and kind of figuring out what study habits work best for me in terms of the MCAT, and what test taking strategies work better for me. So I would definitely say the main thing is practice. If I had done, I like to think that if I had done it the first time around, a little bit more practice, it would have been better the first time. But like I said, if you feel the need to take it again and be more competitive, then that's completely fine.
With the effects of COVID, many volunteering opportunities are no longer available. Do you have any recommendations in order to get those volunteering opportunities?
Yeah, so that is difficult. I feel that because like I had said, I really was hoping for some away rotations in my 4th year, kind of like auditions, to be able to go and kind of have like 3 or 4 of those. I was only able to have 1, and that was kind of disappointing. But for volunteer activities, one thing that I found that was actually kind of beneficial was social media. Surprisingly, social media is a good way to kind of be able to build your network. And if you can do it in a professional manner, that is something that hopefully will be able to open up some opportunities for volunteering, especially in the era of COVID right now. That's what I had done for my virtual PMR rotation. There was a doctor that I had seen on Twitter who was talking about starting this rotation, and I reached out to him on Twitter and I was like, hey, I'm interested in, he built this whole thing basically from Twitter. So whatever social media outlet that you can find in a professional manner that maybe is offering some volunteer opportunities, search for that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's available.
What drew you into medicine specifically? Because there's a lot of careers out there that can help other people if that's your main goal, but what drew you into the medical field instead of PT or PA, for example?
Mm-hmm. So the thing that I liked about medicine was the leadership aspect. I think that, being the leader in your field is something that is really important to me. I am someone who likes to, lead by example, and also, be able to facilitate what, everybody else's opinions are and what, everybody can bring to the table and help move that agenda forward for the group. So being a doctor kind of puts you in that position to hear things from your residents, from your medical students, from your nurses, from your therapists, and kind of help push that forward. And that's something that I specifically found in PM&R is that you are building that, kind of team, that leader, you're the leader of this team. That I think is really, really cool. Specifically with medicine, I wanted to work directly with people. I wanted to build long-term relationships with people, not something that I just see for one or two hours out of a week, but instead I'm able to see these patients for a couple months, a couple years, 10 years, and see their progress. So those were kind of like the main things that I thought that medicine specifically.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. The ability to see people improve within their progress and everything. That's really impactful. When we're talking about your application, you mentioned that you added high school experiences to it. Does that mean you can add experiences other than undergrad?
Yes, I think so. And I think in a way that is more relevant. So my example was poor. I kind of wanted to just add a bunch of things that kind of beefed up my application, and I kind of got burned for that, as I had mentioned. But I think that adding stuff, from before undergrad that is relevant, I think is okay. You want to add things that you're passionate about. If you have been doing some volunteer activity from before you started college, feel free to add that. That's good. If you wanted to, if you played a sport at a really high level, you can add that, because that I think is something that it makes you who you are and has really developed you into the person that you are applying as a future medical student. So really think about what are the opportunities that you've had, opportunities and experiences that you've had prior to college that are impactful to you as a pre-med student and as a future medical student. And if that's something that's really important and kind of has made you who you are, then I think that's okay to add to your medical school applications.
How do you deal with burnout and coping with stressful situations, such as not being happy with your first MCAT score, or even someone who doesn't know how to apply for the first time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, that's kind of where I say, like, make sure that you find time for your passions. For me, it was always music and soccer, or, working out, fitness, make time for those things. So that's kind of how I've always combated with burnout. Not being happy about my MCAT score. It's definitely frustrating. When I was making this presentation, I was really trying to think back to that mindset that I was in. And it's frustrating. It's very defeating. You have this goal and you're not able to achieve it initially. That's kind of where you got to think back to, and this will be good also before you start making your personal statement for med school, is start thinking about why you are doing this in the first place. Why are you, going into medicine? Why do you want to be a doctor? And really think about those reasons. If you need to write it down, write it down. I like to have a lot of quotes hanging around my study area. Just that keeps me motivated and keeps me going. So find the things that motivate you, the things that kind of get you up, out of bed each morning. Really focus on that, and then continue to make time for yourself. That is something that will be stressed, from undergrad to med school to after med school. When you're a doctor, make time for yourself. If you're passionate about things that you want to do, make sure that you make the time to do that. And if you have certain quirks and study habits that you like to do, make sure that you fit that in. My study schedule used to include things like, I would study for 4 hours in the morning. And when I have my lunch and dinner breaks, I would truly take a break. I would sit down with my lunch in front of my TV or my laptop and just watch TV. I could not be bothered. I could not look at notes. I would not look at anything else. I would really just focus on that. And so make sure like I'm saying, just take time to, take breaks, focus on yourself, focus on the things that you need to do, and think about the long-term goal, really focusing on that long-term goal. So, and that's, I think, would be something. I think the question was like, I was digressing, but I think the question was, someone who doesn't get in the first time for applying, don't get too disheartened. Really focus on, okay, think about how can you improve your application? Maybe talk to an advisor, talk to, a mentor that you may have them look over your application, look over your personal statement, talk about your scores. Focus on those things to how you can beef up, your application for the next time around, and, keep looking at that long-term goal.
I noticed that you said that one of your...
I think the next question here is...
Sorry, my connection went off.
No, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was gonna go on to the next question on, did you, going off of your study tips on your time schedule and everything, how did you, do you have any more tips on that? Or how did you get the high grades?
Yeah, so I can just kind of talk about my study schedule for, the first couple of years of med school. The fourth year of med school is actually kind of like your senior year of high school. Things are a little bit more chill. You turn in your applications. Your main things are focusing on residency interviews. So I'm not studying so much every day now, but my first 2 years is pretty intensive studying. So my study schedule kind of consisted of, we would have these problem-based learning and team-based learning cases that we'd have to do for about 4 hours each day, whether it be in the morning or the afternoon. Then I'd come home, I would take time to either have my lunch or my dinner or whatever it was, and then study for about 4 hours in a block of about 4 hours, whether that was, educational videos, lectures, catching up on notes in that regard. That's kind of how I would base that 4 hours. And that was really dedicated. I'd take an hour or two break to work out or, play intramural soccer or hang out with friends, and then come back and probably do another hour or two of studying, just kind of like a last minute review of things that I had learned for that day or things that I was looking forward to the day, like the next lectures or cases that we were doing. So that's kind of how I based it. It was about, each day would be about 4 to 6 hours of studying, along with the 4 hours that we would be at the school for our cases. And then, intersperse time for, fitness and cooking and whatever that may be for you. And then when it came to board studying time, it got a little bit more intense. But, that's something that is kind of like another stage. I don't think you guys are at that point right now, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me when you get to that point.
Do you think it's possible to work during medical school? Because I know that's a huge time commitment to focus on medical school, your clinicals and everything. But do you recommend having a job while working in medical school?
I don't know anybody who had a part-time job during medical school. It's definitely based off of what I even had just mentioned, you're in class for, 3 to 4 hours a day. You have, or labs or whatever. You have to study for about 4 to 6 hours a day. That's, a minimum of 8 hours. There's not too much time other than that. You have to eat, you have to shower, you have to, do normal daily activities. having work in there is going to be very difficult. That being said, I don't know if it's impossible. I personally didn't try working in medical school or having a part-time job. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some people out there who do that, but I personally think that would be really, really difficult. What you could do is the kind of the things that I had talked about were like in between like my M1 year, my M2 year, we had about weeks off. You try and find some experiences that you can do, whether it be research or volunteering, or if you can find a part-time job that's willing to, do 8 weeks for you during like that summer break, do that, because, that first of all, it's a good way to kind of, break away from the monotony of medical school, but also build up your, resume and your CV for, your future applications. And, if it's research, then you're beefing up your research. If it's volunteering, you're beefing up your volunteering. So try and, make that 8 weeks count. Or, I mean, I had 8 weeks, but, kind of make that time count in between your M1 and M2 year. But in terms of working the part-time job, I personally think that'd be pretty difficult. But if you find a way to do it, then, go for it. Who's going to turn down a part-time job,
Finally wrapping up, I know you previously mentioned that you applied to CMU due to the comparison in cost to the other colleges that you did apply to. Were there any other key points that drove you towards CMU?
Yeah. So, I mean, being in Michigan was one thing. Also, being accepted to medical school is a pretty um, intensive. That was like, one of the few medical schools I was actually accepted to. So I was going to go there no matter what. But the things that I liked about CMU was their curriculum, how it was set up in the sense of problem-based learning, PBL, TBL, problem-based learning and team-based learning. I think that was a good way to really focus on, first of all, interacting with my peers who are going to be my future, the doctors that I'd be working with in the future. It gave a good way to kind of go through a lot of cases, learn pathology through asking questions and being inquisitive and doing our own research, as opposed to just being lectured, this stuff all the time. I think that was a good way. And, if you have, your friends who, know one thing and they're able to teach you and it sticks. And if you know one thing, you're able to teach it to them. And, that's kind of been how CMU's curriculum has been in the first 2 years of medical school. So that was one thing that really stuck out to me. They also had a really good anatomy course. And to me, that ended up being very beneficial because I was applying for PMR in the future. But, anatomy, the way that they did anatomy was really good too. And, so when you're looking at medical schools, if you are, if you get accepted to a lot of different schools, think about, tuition is definitely one thing, that you want to keep in mind. It's a long-term commitment, and, being close to family and friends is something that is going to be important. Look at what their curriculum is like and talk to upperclassmen or people who may have graduated from there and ask, how did you like this curriculum? Did you feel prepared for residency? Did you feel as if, there was parts that were lacking? So those are kind of like my tips for, if you have a selection of different places for medical school, then, think about those things.
Thank you so much for the incredible, insightful session, Alwin. I know everyone in the chat is truly appreciative of you taking your time to lead the session. I really enjoyed how interactive and encouraging you were, and I hope to have a session with you again in the future. If you would like to post your social media handles or links to your business endeavors in the chat, please feel free to do so. And to our Wayne State University students, please make sure you complete the Google survey posted in our Zoom chat that summarizes the discussion.
I'll sorry, I didn't quite hear that, but yeah, I'll put my social media stuff in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me on anything. I'm an open book, so if you guys ask me anything, feel free to text me or email me. That's totally fine. I think the session's recorded, so you can look back at what my information is. We have our Instagram handle at the Winbros. That's me and my brothers. My older brother's a resident right now, so if you message us, we'll answer any questions that you may have. And it's a cool way to check out our music and our fitness and our medical school journey. So our medical journey now after medical school too. So yeah, thank you so much for the session. This is actually my first time doing something like this. So I was definitely a little nervous, but I think it went well. I hope it was cool.
Good. You did a really good job.
I hope you guys learned something. And yeah, if I can do this again in the future, maybe I'll go through some cases and help you guys out in whatever way I can.